On New Year's Eve, the clatter of glasses and distant laughter from the nearby street masked the quiet desperation of a small diner on the edge of town. At a corner table, under the dim glow of a flickering neon sign, she was quietly counting just $5, her hands trembling slightly as she pushed the crumpled bills together, hiding them beneath the chipped edge of the table. Every note felt heavier than the last, each one a tiny lifeline for the night ahead. The bitter winter wind pressed against the windows, and the warmth inside was fleeting, a fragile illusion she could almost touch but not quite hold. Her name was Mara, and at 27, life had already taught her the sharp sting of hardship, the kind that carves silent scars no one sees. Before I continue, if you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whisper Tales 3. There are stories like Mara's that remind us of the quiet magic in humanity, waiting to be noticed. Mara's eyes flicked toward the doorway, where a man entered with a small boy clinging to his hand. He was a single dad, his face lined not just with age but with exhaustion, a silent testament to years of struggle and sleepless nights. The boy, no older than 6, tugged at his father's coat sleeve, whispering something that made the man's lips twitch into a tired but affectionate smile. Mara felt her heart tighten, a strange mix of envy and hope, as she watched them approach a table near the back. Her life had become a careful dance of invisibility. Working multiple jobs, living paycheck to paycheck, every small choice weighed heavily: rent, electricity, groceries, the occasional coffee she never let herself drink. This night, with New Year's Eve outside bursting with celebration she could never afford, she had come to the diner to find a moment's warmth, a plate of inexpensive soup, and perhaps a chance to catch her breath. But as she counted her $5, she realized that even that modest comfort might be out of reach. The man, whose name she later learned was Jared, ordered a modest meal for himself and a small plate of pancakes for his son, who had been shivering through the cold. Mara watched as the boy's face lit up when the plate arrived, eyes sparkling as though the pancakes were a treasure. It was a sight that almost made her forget her own hunger. Almost. Mara's hand trembled as she reached for her wallet, counting the bills one last time. She was painfully aware of the diner staff glancing at her, judging, wondering if she could even pay. She hated that people saw her this way. She hated the shame of needing help, the sting of invisibility. But tonight, she was determined. She would pay, no matter what. She couldn't let herself be turned away. As the clock neared midnight, the diner began to thin. The boisterous crowds outside seemed like another world, one she had no right to touch. Mara gathered her courage, wrapping the $5 bill tightly in her palm. She approached the counter just as Jared and his son were leaving. Something in the boy's innocent smile, the way he held his father's hand, the trust in his tiny eyes, made her pause. Without fully understanding why, she placed the bill on the counter, then stepped back, eyes downcast, her heart hammering in her chest. Jared noticed her hesitance and looked up. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle, not prying, just acknowledging. Mara hesitated, then nodded quickly, embarrassed. She didn't want to explain her life, didn't want to burden anyone with her struggles. But Jared, sensing her unease, smiled in a way that didn't pity her but acknowledged her courage. "Here," he said softly, reaching into his coat pocket. "Keep it." He pressed something small into her hand. It was a $5 bill, his tip from the diner, but more than that, it felt like a bridge. Mara stared at him, speechless. She wanted to refuse, but the warmth in his eyes left her no choice. She clutched the bill as if it were a lifeline, her chest tight with emotion. They lingered for a moment, strangers in a crowded diner, yet connected by an unspoken understanding of survival, hope, and quiet resilience. The boy tugged at Jared's sleeve, impatient but smiling. "Dad, come on. The fireworks are starting." Jared glanced at Mara one last time, nodded, and followed his son outside. Mara remained inside, staring at the door, the cold outside suddenly feeling less oppressive. The diner staff, noticing her, gave her a nod of acknowledgement, no judgment, no harsh words, just silent recognition that some nights are harder than others, and kindness can appear in the smallest gestures. Mara tucked the bills into her coat pocket, a mix of tears and relief prickling her eyes. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen. Outside, fireworks began to erupt, painting the night sky in bursts of gold and crimson. Mara didn't go out to watch them. Instead, she leaned against the window, silently cheering for the strangers who had reminded her that generosity exists in quiet, unexpected forms. The night had not solved all her problems, far from it, but it had given her a spark, a reminder that even in the depths of struggle, human connection can light the darkness. She walked home slowly, $5 richer in her pocket, but far wealthier in spirit. That single act of kindness, a simple exchange of money, a glance of understanding, had reminded her that hope persists, even in the smallest of gestures. Mara resolved that when she was able, she would pay it forward, not just the money, but the compassion, the acknowledgement of another person's struggle. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whisper Tales 3. Let's honor the quiet heroes of everyday life, and the moments that remind us why kindness matters more than ever. And before we close, take a moment to reflect on someone in your life who could use a small gesture of hope tonight. It might change everything. Mara's New Year's Eve began with trembling hands and a single, crumpled $5 bill. By the end of the night, she had discovered something far more precious, that even in the loneliest, coldest moments, a shared human connection, however brief, can reignite the heart, and sometimes, the smallest act of kindness is the spark that starts a lifetime of hope.